So I'm here at AWE 2018 with Hendrik Witt, the CEO of Ubimax. So you actually have a research background, is that correct?
Well, that's correct. Actually, I mean, I'm in the field of wearables and AR since I think it's 17 years by now. So, and obviously, I started off in research in academia. Did my PhD even on wearables and AR and user interface design. Did that at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. So yeah, it's fair to say I'm having a research background originally, but now I'm totally.
And at what point did you make the transition to Ubimax?
So historically, I started off in research in academia with the classical track of going into academic programs, and I was running a large European research project around wearables called Where IT at Work. It was actually about wearables in the enterprise space, and after that one got completed, I then decided to continue that basically, and that is basically the point where we founded Ubimax.
Right, and so since then you've actually won several awards. So the most notable of the many awards you've won is the Auggie at AWE last fall. And then the Germany Innovation Award from Accenture.
Yeah, that's correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And was that specifically for Frontline?
Correct. I mean, last year we really won the Auggie for Best Enterprise Solution. So, and that one was for the Frontline platform that we created, and the same it was with the Innovation Award. Yeah.
And so Frontline is what empowers your end users to have an end-to-end solution. So like the biggest problem that we would have like as a customer, right, is that we need it reliable, serviceable, and we need to be able to manage it themselves. Like they would need to be able to manage that end-to-end process themselves, and that's what Frontline empowers them to do.
Yeah, that's correct. I think Frontline, what sets really Frontline apart is it's much more than the app that runs on the smart glass or whatever device, right, that powers this. It's more than the visual component, because once you go into enterprise space and once you're not just thinking but actually scaling your solutions to the field, then you need more. And that is what Frontline delivers. It's really this end-to-end solution, as you said. It's the Frontline, how we call it, it's the Frontline workplace, which is kind of the system, the application that sits on the wearable. But then there's also a backend solution, which we call Frontline Command Center. It's really this tool for the shop floor managers, really to control their frontline workforces, to manage all the different processes, to manage the AR systems, basically. And then recently, we added another product to that platform, which we call Frontline Creator. And that is basically the tool that allows even a non-IT expert to create its own augmented reality experience.
And that's what really digs into the actual details of what someone on the floor is doing. So how is that changing the process or what someone does on their day-to-day? See, either like picking in the logistics setting, or even just inspecting items on the manufacturing floor, like what in their workflow is changing because of Frontline?
Well, you could say very simple. I mean, we make the process much more ergonomic with the software, what we're doing. So the most, I think, tangible thing is making it hands-free, as simple as it sounds. This is one of the biggest improvements for most of the industrial processes. We digitalize the processes, but in addition, for the frontline worker, the biggest change is we turning, abstract things into very visual components. So things you can easily perceive, easy understanding, and especially that helps with your learning curve, right?
Yep.
Because it's so easy to understand. So let's say, even though we both don't know anything about order picking, we could go into a DHL facility or an Amazon facility, put on the glasses with Ubimax Frontline on, and it just will take us through the process.
Right, and I think that's how easy it needs to be. I don't need to be an IT person to know like how to operate the headset. I should just be able to walk up to you, be like, hey, put this on, and just follow the instructions.
Correct. I mean, the biggest challenge today, for me at least, in AR, in enterprise, is the complexity of the system, right? It's a technology, yes, but people that are supposed to use that technology today, they see and feel the technology. And what we try to do is we try to nicely cover up all the technology pieces and complexity around this and give them something that just feels good and works good, right? And is reliable.
And then the next part is it needs to be adaptable. So especially when you're like, there's the first time you've implemented it, service workers on the field are going to be like, this part isn't functional. Instead of having to go back to the entire development process to get out a new update, I can just go into the Frontline system and make those adjustments on the fly.
Exactly, and this is what Creator does for you, right? In a very simple, easy drag and drop kind of environment where you as a non-IT expert can go in, immediately change a process due to whatever reason has occurred on the shop floor, and you can change the AR application. So you can really modify and adapt to the various, constraints or changes that you have on the day-to-day basis.
And then back to the hands-free part of it and the benefits. So this would mean that as a frontline worker, I wouldn't need a clipboard to take around and keep track of the steps I've done or like who's inspected it. All that is done digitally.
Correct. All that is done digitally, and even more, you as a worker, you don't have to kind of bother anymore, right? You just let the system collect all the information that is necessary in the background, and you can kind of fully focus on your real task, on the primary task, that typically involves your hands, and you can just stay focused and not get distracted by IT systems.
And then on like the warehouse and manufacturing side of things, so typically like if you have multiple manufacturers in an area, you'll have one expert who is responsible for going around if there's anything needed or needs repairs or fixed, or if people have problems. That expert then drives, and there will be like a 6-hour radius that they're in of things that they drive to. And so you have a problem, and now the plant's down for 2 hours until they get there. But you also have a remote service ability where that expert can go in, see what the problem is, and tell them how to fix it. And then those 2 hours, 3 hours downtime become 5, 10, 15 minutes.
That's correct. I mean, that's the remote support. Our application for that is called X Assist. That gives you really this, you see what I see experience. You can save travel time, as you just said. It gives you a very short ROI from the application. But it's actually even more with Frontline. You get the Frontline suite, which is a suite of solutions. You can think of something similar like a Microsoft Office. You can use one, just Word or spreadsheets or whatever, but the power kicks in when you combine those. So in your scenario, you're in the midst of a assembly process, something went wrong, and you don't know what to do. You can instantaneously call support, which connects you to, based on your context you're in, connects you to the right person with the right skill set somewhere in the world, and then these experts can help you to fix that issue, overcome the hurdle, and then you go back to normal.
Right. And then, so another part that I find interesting is Frontline's trying to be device agnostic, which actually helps as new hardware keeps coming out. If you're looking to make this big investment, you would like these devices to last a while, but you also want to be adaptable as new devices come out that add new features that make it easier to work with. And with Frontline, it seems like you'll be able to just swap in any device and then change it can you make changes per individual devices based on different types of interactions?
Yeah, you can really interchange devices. It's correct. The platform is totally agnostic to the hardware vendors. I think that is actually also a must from an enterprise perspective, because when they do big investments for scale, they want to be sure that there's not, on the next day, one device gets discontinued, and kind of they are in huge trouble. So we really abstract all the technical details with Frontline so that you can be relaxed whatever new device comes up, and that gives additional benefits to your business. you can bring them in the mix, or you can totally switch. And we do all. I mean, we manage all the technical complexity around that for
Right.
you.
And removing that technical complexity is what makes it very appealing to an end customer.
Yes, that's true, right? And you can even say, when you have, because Frontline is kind of a task execution platform, if you will, and there might be scenarios where you say, yes, you could use a smart glass with full-blown AR, but maybe a wrist-worn wearable would work as well. You could even bring that into the mix for selected devices, though.
I see. And but you're also working very closely with the different headset manufacturers. Like I know you had a partnership with Google Glass.
Yes.
And so what are some of the things that you learned with that partnership that you don't think you would have come out of had you not been working closely with the headset manufacturer?
So we do have and maintain these strategic partnerships because it's of mutual benefit to the two organizations. We do have the customer contact, right? We get the feedback directly from the customers, and then we can kind of work with our hardware vendor partners on kind of improving the hardware in the right direction. So we give direction on, the roadmap and these kind of things. And that helps then by the end of the day, the customer.
Right. So you have data of what the customers are having problems with, and then that helps the hardware make adjustments.
Exactly. And then those goes back to the customers, so they benefit from the adjustments and adaptations that were done by the hardware vendors. And that's only possible if you work closely with those partners in a kind of a partnership, yeah.
And the next part is making all of this measurable. So if I do go in and change a process, I want to know, is this any faster? Did I make it better? Did I make it worse? And you also have a metric system that allows you to keep track of all the different steps.
That's true. There's a KPI component and an analytics component included in the platform that gives you exactly these capabilities. You can measure your processes in the first step, but then in the later, what we do is we try to learn from those measurements and provide suggestions, for example, how you could improve the process by adapting the AR system, things like that.
And so what are some of the challenges that you're currently trying to overcome or having difficulty with?
Well, there are various challenges in the space. This staying hardware agnostic and making it work smoothly, it's quite a challenge, right? It is very technically complex. So that is definitely one of the challenges. And for us, it's also important, and it's not so much then a technical challenge. Is once our customers go for scale, Ubimax is ready for scale. But the entire ecosystem needs to be ready for scale as well. We act as a one-stop shop, so we handle all the complexity, and we need to take the customers through the change process, right? So there are various things also around the people then that are involved in those kind of scenarios. So it goes actually beyond technology then.
And so the difficulty is, how do you recognize and keep up with the changing requirements that are needed on the manufacturing floor? And it sounds like Frontline allows that, but are there things that you didn't know was a requirement until you started working on it and working with the customers?
Yeah, obviously also we do learn basically every day from our customers. So it's a completely new space we're all in. And but that's actually also one of the reasons, the stuff that we learned, that now goes all into Frontline Creator, so that once we learn something, we try to build this into a reusable component that kind of holds that knowledge and makes it easy to reuse for others, so that we as a group can learn from each other and can benefit from each other afterwards.
Do you have any parts of it to where, like for inspection, is that relying on, so let's just get into the details like what a worker would do. So like if I'm inspecting a device, is that going to be telling me where to look and things, and like am I checking off, or is there an AI component that's saying this looks good or this doesn't look good, and then you have the AI and a person checking it?
Well, certainly the most important thing is your second, which is you get the question or whatever and you check it, right, as the human being. So because this is the most reliable today, we have components in there that automatically also then generate you the reports of your whatever questionnaire or however you think of it, the audit process. But we also have components that use computer vision to help you give guidance in that process. So you can look with the AR system onto a component and it tells you, well, I think it's good or it's on the edge or things like that. And then maybe you are still at the point where you could overrule the system, right? Because that system needs to be trained and learned. But we do have those components and the feedback is very good from the market.
So does that speed up? Have you found that? Do you have any like metrics as far as like how much faster your customers are getting things done relative once they've integrated Frontline?
Oh yeah, because customers rely basically once they introduce new technology, they want to see the benefits, right? They want to do the ROI calculations, things like that. So we measure that, and we typically measure in terms of speed, so performance improvement. We do see. It obviously depends on the use case you're in, but we usually see something between a 15% and more than a 50% performance improvement. So it can be very significant for industries. And we even see, like, for example, in DHL and the likes I can talk about, we see more than 25% performance improvement in order picking, which is huge. Because those processes usually get, constant improvement over years. And if you can reach 25% better results, that's huge.
25% more orders filled
for example,
in a time frame,
or faster,
right?
or you can complete your orders in 25% less time, for example. Yeah. So the throughput can be higher. Quality. So error reduction is another thing. We typically see a minimum of 10% improvement on error, so improving the quality there. That's another thing we typically measure. And then there's the third, which to me is very, very important, and that is, what are the users thinking about the system? So it's more a qualitative thing rather than the quantitative figures. And that is almost overwhelming, I'd say. Sometimes it's even surprising. But the reality is, the people that are using this, the frontline workers, they now get a tool at hand that really helps them doing their actual work, which is a physical task usually, and is not a system that is actually, so where the use is kind of a burden to do so, right? So that is probably one of the reasons why we're so successful with our enterprise customers in terms of employee happiness or these kind of things.
I see. And then just last round of questions. Is there any new features that you're currently working on that you plan on rolling out in the next 6 months or year?
Yeah, there's a lot to come around the Frontline Creator. So we will bring in much more components, much more complex things that bring you as a non-IT expert into position to do very complex and very compelling AR applications. That's where the focus goes.
And are there certain industries that haven't really picked up this type of technology that you see picking it up in the next 5-10 years?
Well, for us at least, we're predominantly working in the classical enterprise space, industrial enterprise space, and there I can't say that there is any specific industry segment that has not taken on action yet. So it's pretty broad what's happening today. What I think will come up more and more over time, at least when I maybe compare even the US versus the European part or the Asian part, is in the healthcare area. I think those are not what you would consider this heavy industry segments, right? Healthcare environments, but they also have all these processes that we're currently supporting today already for the classical manufacturers.
And then for your customers, you also provide like consulting services, implementation, training. So if someone did want to work with you or reach out to you, where would they go?
Well, that's correct. Ubimax can be perceived as a one-stop shop. So we do the services. We also do support. We have our own organizations for that. But more importantly, we also have a significant partner ecosystem. So there are a bunch of partners out there throughout the world that are trained on our solution that can help you implement the system. And even you could say, well, I already have a partner that I'm working with on a daily basis, and those partners could also be onboarded in the partner program.
I see. All right. I want to thank you for your time and coming on. Do you have anything else you would like to say or mention?
Thank you. Having a great time here, especially at AWE, and let's see who the winner is for the Auggie this year. We haven't applied. So.
Okay. Yeah. Looking forward to it and see what you come up with next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. We would like to keep sharing more about VR and AR with you, so please consider a few dollars to our Patreon, linked in the show notes. The Virtuality Podcast is produced by Jason Parks and music by Rachel Dazinski. This podcast is in collaboration with Boston VR and Boston AR. Monthly meetups and events can be found on meetup.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @VirtualityCast and learn more at our website, virtuality.show.